Today I'm going to show you how to take an old cabinet and redo it. So if you have an old kitchen that you're really tired of looking at and you want to update it and you don't have the money to go ahead and spend out or throw out on your cabinets, or maybe you want to get granite countertops and you don't have that budget, I'm going to show you how to do it. This is an old cabinet door that I had laying around. It was an old sample, and I just did the front and not the back so I can show you what it was. We changed it from this to this. And you can change it to a number of different colors. There's so many variations that you can do when you're working with this. As you can see, I just put some distress marks on it. I scratched it in here, put some little pecky holes, and I glazed it, painted it. It doesn't take long to do. You can do your entire kitchen in a couple of days easily. Right now I'm going to show you how to take an old cabinet, an existing oak cabinet right here, and I'm going to take this and we're going to paint it. You'll want to use a vibrating sander. It doesn't matter, you can use an orbital, anything like that, to sand all your flat pieces. You want to sand all of these. Well, people get nervous and say, well, how am I going to sand this? That's what stops people from doing this. They're afraid they can't get in these little spots here and get it really clean. You don't have to worry about that when you're painting. You use a good automotive primer. A gray automotive primer will stick in there, and that way you can paint over this, because this has a catalyst finish on it, and even if it's stained, it doesn't matter. That clear coat, you go to paint over it with a latex paint, it is not going to stick. But if you take automotive primer, you can use a latex or oil or anything you want after that. So we're going to sand the flats, then we're going to take this and wipe it down real good, and I like to use either a lacquer thinner or an acetone, and that's what I use to wipe it down, because that will help cut this clear and clean it off real well and get it prepped for the priming. And this is only going to take a couple of minutes. Let me show you. That's how it needed. What I'm doing is I'm roughing this up. Okay, and that's what that sandpaper does. This is 100 grit. I rough it up, and then now when I come back over and wipe it, it's not slick like it was with the clear on there. So once you get that deglossing on it, you can go ahead and prime it. Notice when I'm sanding, I always sand with the grain. You never sand against the grain. Don't go this way when the grain's going up. You just go with the grain here, with the grain on these edges, and these rails right here, I'll just go right there with the grain. Well, it only took a couple of minutes. I sanded the faces down. I did hit the edges right here, but I didn't go into this part because I don't want to take the chance of sanding that profile down. So I sanded the edges, all the flats, things that were very easy to get to. I didn't even sand into this because I don't want to mess up this profile. So I just sanded the flat part. This right here, you can take a little bit of sandpaper and just rough it if you want. 100 grit will work. You just hit it a little bit there, but it's really not necessary. You take this after you're finished, rub it all down. This is a lacquer thinner. That's what I used on here. Just to show you that you can use both, I use acetone on this. Most things I use acetone on because the fumes are a lot easier on your body. Alright, once that's done, we're going to go ahead and take our primer, shake it up real good, and we'll spray these down. You don't have to put a heavy coat. You don't have to put 3 or 4 coats. Just one coat on there will do it. And I'll hit a little bit on the front. 1 can will cover an awful lot. So 2 or 3 cans will cover your kitchen easily, and they're only like $5 a can. See right here on this profile, I told you, that right there I didn't sand because I didn't want to mess up that profile, so I want to make sure I get it in there. And it doesn't take but a minute to spray the whole thing. I sprayed the top and all the little crevices. Now I'll let it sit for about 15 minutes. When it's dry to touch, flip it over and just spray the backside. We'll let that dry for a little while, then we'll take it, flip it back over, and we can lightly wet sand this. You don't have to wet sand it, but you can use a wet sandpaper. I like to come back over this after I'm finished with 400 to 500 grit sandpaper and just smooth it out. While I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm going to go ahead and take a minute to show you a couple of tools. These are some screwdrivers that are made by Mega Pro. I see these guys at the shows because I attend all the shows. I have patents myself. So when I'm talking to these guys, I'll walk around there and check out different tools. I talk to them and I ask them to show me their screwdrivers. This was a few years ago. They gave me some of them. I still have them. These are the best screwdrivers I've ever used in my life. And I'll tell you why. This is your standard screwdriver with multi-bits. You put your storage bits in the back. Of course it got broken, lost. Other ones, or in this one also, had extra places to put your bits in. These always get lost. They get knocked out and lost in your toolbox. Becomes junk. They have a patented back on here. This holds all these extra tips. So the tip goes out and comes right into the back of here and closes up. If this spins, the cap's not going to unscrew because there's no cap on there. It's all built into it. There's a magnet that holds it in place, but it's really well made. Shoves in there and it stays in there. If I need a certain bit, I keep all of these bits in here, which I think are 12 different ones. But I change a couple of them myself because I have certain bits that I use a lot more than others. And I just like extras of those. This right here is your number 1, your number 2. I have a 0, a 4. I use a lot of Phillips bits. I like to put a few extra flat bits in here because, you know, whatever you want to use or you use more often in certain situations. Now when I'm doing electrical work, I have a little bit different one with different bits in there. On a fire department, I have a couple of really small nut drivers that I keep with me and I put those on it. This is a fantastic tool. It has really tight little gears in it, okay? So you can turn it, it's a ratchet and it barely turns. I hate these ones where you can't get that last turn when you're trying to get into a fine place. It has fine teeth on it. So you have forward, backward, and neutral. Neutral means it locks in place, so you can go backwards and forwards, and it's not gonna ratchet. Really cool little tool. They gave me a few extra ones while I was there the other day, or last week or whatever. I was at the Chicago show, Orgel show. It's a great show. I see these two guys all the time, Dave and Craig, and I told them I'd like to show one especially because it was for breast cancer. They gave me this one, and this is not a ratcheting one, but it has the great features in the back of the other one. And they give $1 for every one that you sell, or they sell. So if you go and buy one, they give $1 to breast cancer. I thought that was a really neat thing. It's pink, and it's really adorable little screwdriver. They have the blue too. Right now, while the pink ones are there, I would buy these. This is a fantastic screwdriver, and I have a couple of people in mind that I want to get them for. Like I said, very, very well-made tool. They make them in the USA, so they give Americans jobs too. All right, we're going to move on and get this back part painted, primed. Once I finish priming that back, we're going to take this and paint it and glaze it. This is primed. I'll let it sit for about an hour, so it's good enough to go ahead and sand on. Here's my sandpaper. You can do it wet or dry. Just rub it. I prefer to do it wet because this will last longer. Once this gets a little gummed up from the dry, it wears out. So you can just take a little bit of water, hit on there, and all you have to do is smooth it a little bit. There's nothing to it. You don't want to hit the edges too hard on there because you'll take the primer right off the edges. So you just want to smooth out all of the flats so you get a nice finish on there after. If you're painting knockdown cabinets like this is, and you're going to put it together after, go ahead and paint this channel end right here, the back of your stile, because you don't want that showing a different color when you put it all together. So make sure you hit that and you hit the edges. Now we're back to this. I touched this up, sanded it a little bit, smoothed it out. When you sand this with wet sandpaper, even 400 grit, if you look at it on an angle, you'll see where you sanded it. It's going to look polished. So what you're going to do is take and put a clear coat over it. That not only protects it, but it'll even everything out. And one of the best clears that I've ever seen for this is Deft. I buy this at Lowe's and Home Depot, or I used to buy it at Lowe's all the time. I went there just this week and they said they're no longer selling it. I hope they get it back, because it really is, to me, my favorite for touching things like this up or spraying clear, unless I'm using a catalyzed clear, a lacquer. When I use that, you have to use something else to spray it with. But this you can just buy over the counter, spray it, it evens out everything, really gives a nice look. This is a satin. Satin is really great for cabinets. You go with a gloss, sometimes you may see on different angles that spray pattern. You'll never see it with this. When you spray it with this, you might see it when you first spray it. Once it dries, it all looks even. That's what I really like about this. It evens everything out. And usually, cabinets have a 20% sheen, okay? So this is very, very close to that. You can't even tell the difference between this and a factory cabinet if you spray it, unless they have a glossy cabinet. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'm going to shake this up, and we're going to spray this and finish up the clear. When you're spraying, make sure your tip is clean. Put it upside down, spray it a couple times. You come back over, you just spray even strokes. If you put too heavy of a coat on one spot with this, you don't have to worry, because it evens out. It's really good stuff. That clear dries in about 10 minutes to touch. So then you can put your cabinet together. Now that we have the door put together, I put little bumpers on here. You can get these bumpers by the sheets, and they're soft rubber. So when you put that on the inside of your door and you close it, it doesn't give a clanky sound. I removed the old ones before I painted it, so I just put new ones on. You can get these sheets at fastcap.com. That's FASTCAP.com. And they offer all types of little things to help you out with cabinets. I use them a lot because that's what I do. I deal with cabinets. That's all for now. If you found this video helpful, subscribe to my channel, Paul's Toolbox, because we're going to be covering a lot more on cabinets, how to take a simple kitchen and make it custom on a budget.